So I'm 24 and I have an ICD. Let's talk about it. It's been about a week now since I've had this implanted in my chest, and I wanted to start this series to document my recovery and to show my journey through this particularly life-changing event. And what I'm hoping is that if there's anybody out there who's suffering from heart failure or heart problems or has to go through this experience themselves, that there is potential for you or someone to find something meaningful or something useful, at least for your journey, and we can create a nice little community, over here. So, let's just talk about my experience for a little bit. Well, we have to rewind a little bit to get to that. So, in my graduating year of high school, which was 2017, I had a couple of episodes where I lost consciousness, and I was kind of in and out of hospital in Denmark, and they couldn't really figure out what was wrong, so they put a loop recorder in my chest for a year. They couldn't see anything, so in the end it was taken out, and I kind of just moved on with my life and forgot about it. But last year I got quite sick, and I was in and out of the emergency unit. I had this really bad cough. I think it was an infection of some sort, but I don't know. I still don't have answers as to what was wrong. But I was being put through all these tests, and I was on so many different medications with no answers really. But eventually I had a test with a doctor who focused in pulmonology, and she noticed something was a bit weird about my heart rate. I don't remember if it was either too high or too low. There was something weird about it, and she said, let's refer you to the cardiac unit. So I was referred, and I started doing all these tests that come along with cardiac testing, MRI scan, BP monitor, Holt monitor, echocardiogram, a PET scan, more blood tests. And those brought up some interesting findings. They sort of found that I had significant scarring inside of my heart, and that the function of my heart was reduced. So the muscle isn't pumping as it should do. And my cardiologist took it to a group of his peers, and altogether they decided that I have arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy. ACM is a genetic condition, which is something I was probably born with due to a faulty gene. So they then took into consideration my loss of consciousness history, because over this year I have had an episode where I did collapse. Nothing too bad, I came around within like seconds. But yeah, they took that into consideration, and they all kind of unanimously decided that it was time to put an ICD in me. So I was supposed to have the surgery on like January 3rd next year, but the weekend prior to actually having it implanted, I started feeling terrible. I was having palpitations constantly. I was tight-chested. I was really dizzy, almost collapsed coming through the door with my dog one night. And I called my cardiac nurse. She consulted with my cardiologist, and they both agreed, let's get you in, let's monitor you, with the possibility of the surgery being moved up. So I went into hospital, and I submitted an assignment for my master's looking like this. Yep. And I was monitored for about 2 nights. And on the second night, they apparently recorded an arrhythmia in my heart. So when I woke up that morning, it was go time. They came in, they said, okay, we're putting this in you, and we're putting this in you now. So let's go. Hats off to the team that performed the surgery and that took care of me for those few days. They were incredible. They were so sweet. They're so lovely. The surgery went really well. They have to give you some antibiotics and stuff before you go in. My ICD is transvenous as opposed to the subcutaneous or whatever it's called, which goes in, I think, So I was awake for my surgery, which it's a bit, it sounds scary, but they give you some local anesthetic so you don't feel it. You just kind of feel them tugging at your skin and putting it in. My surgeon was not particularly soft when going in, so I could kind of feel it a little bit more, and it was a bit sore, but they gave me some very nice medication that made me nice and loopy, nice and sleepy. So all in all, I had a laugh with the team who was performing the operation, and I was in and out within an hour and a half, depending on why you're getting your ICD, or even the type of ICD probably that you're getting. Your stay in hospital might be different. So for me, I was allowed to leave about 5 hours after I had the ICD implanted. All they had to do was take a chest X-ray to make sure that everything was sat normally inside of my chest, so there was no punctured lung, or all of that stuff. And they also measured my BP, so my blood pressure, my oxygen levels, all that stuff, for about 2 hours. Like every 15 minutes, the blood pressure thing would expand, and they just kept me on a monitor for about 2 hours. And eventually, when everything was signed off by a doctor, he'd had a look. He let me go home, but you may have to stay overnight, or you may have to stay a bit longer. That's all dependent on why you have to get your ICD. When you leave the hospital, they do give you some instructions and things to do and things not to do. So I had to change my dressing every 2 days, and I think about like 6 days afterwards, maybe I was allowed to take the dressing off. And to be honest, the scar's a lot smaller than I thought it would be. I've seen videos and I've seen people kind of say that the scar's massive, and mine's quite small. So I'm actually really happy about that. Can't lift your arm above your shoulder for about a week or two maybe. So I still can't do it, and I'm left-handed, and it's really annoying because you can't do sudden movements with your left arm either, because you need to wait for all the wires to settle. Now, when you leave the hospital, they give you two things. They give you a little home monitor, which looks something like this, and this takes data from your ICD and sends it to the doctors. Now, you're going to have a call in about a month afterwards. Well, they'll ask you to manually do it, but I found it automatically does it because it shut me out like the second night, because I kept pressing the button because I thought I had to like send it every night. So I got locked out of my own home monitoring system, which is great. Don't do that. The second thing they give you is a little ID card. Looks a little something like this, and it's for when you go through airport security, and you just kind of show it to them. You can't go through metal detectors or anything like that. Now, you will feel weird. It feels weird. You will feel everything, and it's going to make you quite anxious, really. You're going to feel everything. I could feel it pacing my heart when I was having palpitations at night, and it's terrifying because you can feel the electricity. It feels like it's trying to push outside of you, and it's weird. It's a weird sensation that you need to get used to, and it takes the time it takes. I think the kind of most important thing when you get out of the hospital, and certainly for me, is I'm at such a young age where this shouldn't be an issue. I'm 24. I shouldn't have a machine in my heart, or that's connected to my heart, that is there to save my life, and I shouldn't have a condition where my heart's gonna fail over time, and it sucks, and yours, whatever you're going through as well, is probably gonna suck. And it's important that after surgery you do your best to get out of your own head. I know that's a lot easier said than done, but it can be really, really lonely, and it can be really depressing, and because the majority of the time you're sat there in a cardiac unit, and sort of 9 times out of 10 you're going to be the youngest person in that room. You're going to be surrounded by people on their deathbeds, or in their late 60s and onwards, who are coming to the age where things like that do happen, and you're sat there going, why the am I here? And it is really lonely. So there are a couple of things I would recommend that at least I've been doing. It's valuable to reach out to people, whether it's friends or family. I know for me, I have a very supportive family, luckily, and I have friends who immediately started taking the piss out of me. So that's their way of being very supportive, and I think it's very important that you inject some humor into your life, because it can be a very dark period and you can feel very isolated. So being able to have people around you who make you smile and make you laugh and kind of get you out of your own head for a little bit, I think is really important. Now, while it is a surgery, I also think getting out and about is, or has been very important to me as well. They do warn you before you leave, about getting up and moving around, because obviously if you lie down for too long, you might get thrombosis and all this stuff, which is something you don't want to get. Going out for walks, with my dog, take it at your own pace. But I found it really useful for me. I take my dog out for a walk. I started very light. I started with 15 minutes. Then I pushed it up to taking him around the grounds, and then I've kind of moved up to taking him around the park, stuff like that, which has been really helpful. Because also, if you have a golden, look at him. How can you be sad when you look at this face? He's adorable. It gets you out of your own head. It gets you into fresh air, and it kind of just boosts your confidence, really. Right. So, editing Lukas here. One thing I did want to say, which I completely forgot, was it is important to listen to your body as well after your surgery. While walking and all this stuff is perfectly great, and is really good for you to get out of your own head. Also, just listen to your body. If you feel tired, lie down. As you can tell from this clip, I'd spent the day before walking everywhere and working a lot on a song, and I sat on the sofa for 2 minutes and I fell asleep like this for about 4 hours. So if you're tired, if you need to take a nap, if you just need to sit down, do it. One thing I would also recommend is support groups. Now in the UK, we have the British Heart Foundation, which runs a lot of support groups, and I'll leave a bunch of links down below where you can go and you can find something. They have specific ones. I signed up for a volunteer program, so a volunteer reaches out to me kind of every day or so, checks on me, makes sure I'm okay, answers any questions that I may have. She's around my age, also has an ICD, and we just talk every now and then. She gives me a lot of reassurance, especially in the beginning when I was feeling every single sensation and I was like, kind of petrified about it. But she's been great, and I do highly recommend that. So again, check out the links down below. I'll leave them there for you. What I think is important is for something to try and stimulate your brain a little bit. As you can see, I'm a music producer and a songwriter and an artist. So thankfully I've been able to sit in my studio and been working on songs that are coming straight from, I won't lie, quite dark place. But they're also some of the most me songs I've ever written. And I think it's important to find something, whether it's art, whether it's a YouTube channel or music or anything like that. I think it's really important to try and find something that will stimulate your brain, maybe in a creative way where you can express yourself, especially if you find it difficult talking to someone or talking to people. And one final point I do have is you need to know that you can live a normal life. If you're a Manchester United fan and a Dane such as myself, you will be fully aware of the Christian Eriksen situation, where he went down during the Euros in the first half against Finland with a cardiac arrest, and he has been implanted with an ICD as well. And 8 months after that, he made his full professional return to football. Now he plays for Manchester United, so I love him even more. But it's a really inspirational story. So we can live normal lives and we can live it to the fullest. And I think that's really important to remember, especially when we get inside our own heads. Now, I know this is probably going to be a very, very long video and probably all over the shop as well. But I hope you anybody who's watching this sticks around for the journey. What I really hope is that we can build a little community here that supports each other, talks to one another, because, we're all young and we're all going through this that not many people experience at a young age. And I really hope that we can all just come together, be supportive, and really grow a community of people to just bring each other back up while we learn to adapt to a new normal life. So, yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next one.